Hello everyone. Welcome back to Fluent English Journey. I'm Ava, and today we are going to talk about something very important that touches all of us at some point in our lives: what makes a good teacher? This is a topic that can make us think a lot because teaching is not just about giving information or facts. Teaching is about helping, guiding, inspiring, and connecting with students. A good teacher does more than just explain things. They make students feel confident, motivated, and curious. Before we start, I want you to listen carefully. Pay attention to the words I use, the examples I give, and how I explain ideas in English. This episode is very helpful for advanced learners at the C1 or C2 level who want to improve listening, vocabulary, and understanding. So, what do you think of when you imagine a good teacher? For me, it is not only someone who knows a lot about their subject. Knowledge is very important, of course, but it is just the beginning. A really good teacher can take difficult ideas and make them simple and easy to understand, without making students feel embarrassed or incapable. For example, imagine a math teacher explaining a difficult formula. If they can show how that formula relates to real life, like calculating the cost of a trip or measuring ingredients in a recipe, students suddenly understand why it is useful. That connection between learning and real life makes a huge difference. Another very important quality is empathy. Good teachers understand that every student is different. Some students learn quickly, while others need more time and practice. A patient teacher notices these differences and changes their teaching to help each student succeed. For instance, think of a language teacher. If one student struggles with pronunciation, a caring teacher will not just correct them harshly. Instead, they will show gentle exercises, repeat words clearly, and encourage the student to practice in a fun and stress-free way. That kind of support makes learning enjoyable and effective. Then there is passion. Passionate teachers are exciting and inspiring. When a teacher is genuinely enthusiastic about their subject, it motivates students to care and participate more. For example, a history teacher who tells stories about real people instead of only listing dates makes history come alive. Students remember it better and enjoy learning. Communication skills are also very important. A teacher can know everything about a subject, but if they cannot explain it clearly, students will feel confused. Good communication includes speaking clearly, listening to students, asking questions, and giving helpful feedback. For example, if a student understands a topic but cannot explain it in writing, a teacher might give clear tips, examples, and encouragement. This helps the student improve without feeling criticized. Adaptability is another key quality. Classrooms today are changing fast. Technology, different learning styles, and new teaching methods require teachers to be flexible. A good teacher tries new tools, adjusts lessons, and finds the best way to teach each student. For example, a science teacher might use a virtual experiment to explain a complicated concept instead of only using a textbook. This makes learning interactive and memorable. Also, a sense of humor is very helpful. Learning can be stressful, especially at advanced levels. Teachers who can make students laugh while still teaching important lessons create a friendly and safe environment. Students feel comfortable asking questions and making mistakes, which is essential for learning. Now, let's think about some examples from daily life. Who was your favorite teacher in school or university? Why did you like them? Maybe it was because they remembered your name, asked how your weekend was, or shared a story you could relate to. These small gestures show care and respect. Students learn better when they feel valued. Another example could be a language teacher who organizes weekly discussions. Instead of just teaching grammar, the teacher encourages students to speak, share opinions, and debate ideas. This improves language skills, confidence, and critical thinking. The teacher listens, gives feedback, and motivates everyone. This is how effective teaching works. Finally, great teachers are always learning themselves. They read books, attend workshops, and explore new teaching ideas. By doing this, they set a good example for students. A teacher who is curious and always improving inspires students to do the same. To summarize, what makes a good teacher? A good teacher has knowledge about their subject, empathy for their students, passion for teaching, excellent communication skills, adaptability and flexibility, a good sense of humor, a commitment to lifelong learning. But the most important quality of all is the ability to connect with students, make learning meaningful, and inspire growth. Now, let's talk about different teaching styles. Every teacher has their own way of teaching, and this affects how students learn. Some teachers are authoritative. They plan lessons carefully, set high expectations, and maintain discipline. This works well for students who like structure and clear instructions. For example, a math teacher who plans every lesson, gives specific exercises, and checks progress regularly creates a predictable, organized learning environment. But if this style is used too much, it may feel strict or intimidating for some students. Balance is important. Other teachers are facilitative. They guide students instead of just giving information. They encourage questions, discussions, and independent thinking. For example, in a literature class, instead of explaining the meaning of a poem, the teacher might ask, "What do you think the poet wants to say?" This helps students think critically and express complex ideas in English. Another style is mentorship-oriented teaching. These teachers focus not only on academic growth, but also on personal development, career planning, and life skills. For example, if a student is shy in discussions, a mentorship teacher meets them individually, gives confidence-building tips, and provides supportive exercises. Over time, the student improves academically and personally. In the classroom, all these qualities, knowledge, empathy, communication, adaptability, humor, and passion, come together in practical ways every day. They make learning enjoyable, meaningful, and effective. Imagine a science lesson about ecosystems. A teacher who knows their subject well might begin by explaining the theory using diagrams, charts, and scientific terms. But a really good teacher doesn't stop there. To help students truly understand, they might take the class outside for a small field study. Students could observe plants, insects, and soil up close. They take notes, ask questions, and talk about what they see. The teacher encourages students to connect what they see in real life with the ideas they learned in the classroom. This way, students understand that theory is not just words in a book, it is something real and useful. This kind of lesson shows knowledge, empathy, adaptability, and interactive learning all at once. Another example could happen in a language classroom. Imagine a writing lesson where students are learning to express complex opinions. A good teacher might start by showing examples of excellent essays, pointing out the structure, vocabulary, and flow. Then, students could work in small groups to discuss ideas and brainstorm together. After that, students write their own essays while the teacher walks around, offering feedback, answering questions, and giving encouragement. Finally, students could do a peer review session where they give each other constructive feedback. This approach not only teaches technical writing skills, but also builds confidence, collaboration, and communication. A good teacher also knows how important motivation is. Learning can be hard, and students often face challenging topics. Without encouragement, they might feel frustrated or want to give up. For example, imagine a topic like quantum physics or advanced grammar structures. A skilled teacher breaks it into small, manageable parts. They celebrate small achievements and remind students of how much they have improved. They might say something like, "Remember when you couldn't explain this concept? Look at how far you've come." You are doing great. This kind of positive reinforcement helps students develop resilience and a growth mindset, the belief that they can always improve with effort and practice. Feedback is also very important. A good teacher gives feedback that is specific, clear, and constructive. For example, instead of saying, "Your essay is weak," a teacher might say, "Your introduction is strong," but the body paragraphs could use clearer examples. Try to connect your points more directly to your thesis. This tells students exactly what to improve and how to improve it, which is especially important for advanced learners who are trying to refine their English skills. Technology is another tool that modern teachers use to make learning exciting. Apps, virtual labs, and interactive simulations can make lessons more memorable. Imagine a history teacher using virtual reality to take students on a tour of ancient Rome. Students can walk through the Colosseum, streets, and marketplaces as if they were really there. Technology, when used thoughtfully, makes learning engaging and fun. Emotional intelligence is another key skill for teachers. This means recognizing and understanding emotions, both their own and their students'. A teacher with emotional intelligence might notice when a student feels nervous before a presentation and offer reassurance. Or they might see frustration in the classroom and slow down the lesson to make learning easier. Emotional intelligence helps teachers build trust and supportive relationships, which improves learning. Here's a real story to show how this works in practice. A teacher at a language school noticed that one student always avoided speaking in class. Instead of scolding them, the teacher paired the student with a supportive partner and started small, low-pressure speaking activities. Over several weeks, the student grew in confidence, participated more, and eventually even led a class discussion. This shows how empathy, patience, adaptability, and encouragement can transform a student's learning experience. Mentorship is another important part of teaching. In universities, professors guide students through research projects. At first, the professor might give general advice, then gradually allow students to take more responsibility. By the end of the project, students not only complete their research successfully, but also develop critical thinking, problem-solving, and independent learning skills. These are skills that go beyond the classroom. They help students in their careers and everyday life. Great teachers are also lifelong learners. They read the latest research, attend workshops, and try new teaching methods. When students see their teacher learning and growing, they understand that education never stops. They learn to embrace curiosity, open-mindedness, and adaptability, qualities that are especially useful for advanced English learners who need to think creatively and use the language in many situations. Finally, let's talk about creativity in teaching. Creative teachers find new and interesting ways to explain ideas and make lessons memorable. For example, a teacher might use storytelling, role-play, or real-life examples to show abstract concepts. Creativity makes lessons fun, helps students think critically, and encourages them to use English naturally rather than just memorizing rules. When we put all these qualities together, knowledge, empathy, passion, communication, adaptability, humor, motivation, feedback, technology, emotional intelligence, mentorship, continuous learning, and creativity, we see what truly makes a good teacher. But the most important quality is the ability to connect with students on a human level and inspire them to reach their full potential. Now that we've explored what makes a teacher great, we can also think about how students can recognize excellent teaching and maximize their learning. Advanced learners at C1 or C2 level should notice how a teacher explains difficult ideas. A great teacher can take a complex concept and break it into simple, understandable parts without oversimplifying. Imagine a linguistics class discussing phonetics. Some English sounds, like the th in think or the h in har, are difficult for many non-native speakers. A skilled teacher does not just demonstrate the sound once and move on. They show multiple examples, explain how to position your mouth, and provide gradual exercises to help students master these sounds. If you notice that a teacher makes challenging topics clear and understandable, that is a strong sign of effective teaching. Next, look at how the teacher engages with students. Do they ask questions? Encourage discussion? Value student opinions? Engagement shows that the teacher wants students to be active learners rather than passive listeners. For example, in a business English class, a teacher might ask students to role-play negotiating a contract. They listen carefully, provide guidance, and highlight useful phrases or strategies. Students not only learn the language but also gain real-world skills. This kind of engagement shows that the teacher understands the needs of advanced learners, applying knowledge, thinking critically, and practicing communication in realistic contexts. Another important factor is feedback. Advanced learners need specific, constructive feedback. A good teacher doesn't just mark mistakes as wrong. They explain why it is incorrect, suggest alternatives, and show how to improve. For instance, in an essay lesson, a teacher might say, "Your argument is strong, but the transitions between paragraphs could be smoother. Try using linking words like however, furthermore, or on the other hand, ... Observing how a teacher gives feedback can help students recognize teachers who truly want to support learning and growth. Motivation and inspiration are also essential. Good teachers inspire curiosity and enthusiasm. They celebrate every achievement, no matter how small, and create a safe space for students to explore and experiment. For example, a teacher might encourage students to give a short presentation in English about a topic they love. They provide tips beforehand, cheer students on during the presentation, and highlight what went well afterward. This process builds confidence, active learning skills, and a sense of value. Teachers who consistently motivate students are truly excellent. Adaptability is another key quality. Advanced learners often have different levels of vocabulary and skills. A good teacher notices who is struggling and offers simpler explanations or synonyms. At the same time, they challenge stronger students with more complex tasks. This ensures everyone learns at their own pace without feeling bored or overwhelmed. Technology is increasingly important in modern classrooms. Teachers who use technology effectively can make lessons more engaging and memorable. For instance, when teaching idioms, a teacher might use videos, interactive apps, or real-world examples from social media. This helps students see how idioms are used naturally, rather than just memorizing definitions. Combining technology with traditional methods makes lessons dynamic and enjoyable. Emotional intelligence is equally crucial. A teacher who understands their students' feelings can create a classroom where students feel safe, respected, and supported. For example, if students are hesitant to answer questions, the teacher encourages participation, celebrates small successes, and avoids harsh criticism. Advanced learners especially benefit from this environment because they can focus on improving skills rather than worrying about mistakes. Long-term mentorship is another hallmark of great teaching. Some teachers go beyond regular lessons to guide students on study strategies, career choices, and personal growth. For example, a teacher might notice a student struggling with writing fluency and suggest books, online resources, or personalized exercises. Over time, these small acts of guidance can have a profound impact on a student's development. Consider a teacher running an advanced English debate club. They choose challenging topics like ethical dilemmas, global politics, or scientific controversies. Before the debate, the teacher explains key ideas, provides vocabulary, models persuasive arguments, and gives feedback on content and language. They adapt topics based on student interests, encourage peer learning, and integrate technology for research. The atmosphere is respectful, motivating, and dynamic. Students leave not only with better English skills, but also with enhanced critical thinking, confidence, and problem-solving abilities. This shows how multiple qualities coming together create excellent teaching. Another important aspect is independent learning. Advanced learners must take ownership of their education. Good teachers guide students to develop self-study strategies. For example, a teacher might assign a reading task and ask students to summarize, analyze, and discuss it online. Then, they provide feedback but allow students to reflect on their own progress. This approach helps learners identify gaps, improve, and internalize skills, especially valuable for advanced exam preparation or professional English use. Finally, the human element in teaching matters a lot. The difference between a good teacher and a great teacher is often how they connect with students as people. Education is not just about transferring knowledge, it is about inspiring, guiding, and relating to learners. Small gestures like remembering a student's name, showing interest in their progress, or sharing personal experiences can leave a lasting impact. Students who feel seen and valued are more likely to engage deeply, participate actively, and retain knowledge effectively. When students feel respected and appreciated, they are motivated to put in effort, ask questions, and take ownership of their learning. Another important idea is continuous improvement in teaching. Great teachers model the very skills they want students to develop: curiosity, perseverance, and a growth mindset. They learn from every class, try new methods, experiment with different techniques, and reflect on what worked or didn't. This shows students that learning never stops, even for experts. In advanced language learning, where mastery requires nuanced understanding and careful application, seeing a teacher's dedication to self-improvement can be very inspiring. Now, let's look at some famous educators and innovators to understand what makes a good teacher. Take Maria Montessori, for example. She emphasized student-centered learning, where the teacher's role is to observe, guide, and create an environment where students can explore independently. Montessori classrooms are structured but flexible, allowing students to choose activities that interest them while developing skills at their own pace. This shows that a good teacher isn't always the loudest or most authoritative person in the room. They're the one who facilitates growth and nurtures curiosity. Another example is John Dewey, a key figure in progressive education. Dewey believed that learning should be active and experiential, not just memorization. He encouraged teachers to connect lessons to real-life situations and societal problems. For instance, a teacher following Dewey's ideas might teach economics by having students create a mini business project, or teach environmental science by organizing a local community cleanup. This method teaches not only the subject, but also critical thinking, teamwork, and problem-solving skills, which are essential for advanced learners. What about modern teaching practices? Technology has become a powerful tool in education. Some innovative teachers use blended learning, combining in-person teaching with online platforms. For example, an advanced English teacher might assign podcasts, news articles, or TED Talks for listening practice, then use classroom time for discussion and analysis. Students can absorb information at their own pace while still benefiting from real-time guidance. This combination of independence and support reflects the qualities we've discussed: adaptability, empathy, and continuous improvement. Now, let's consider practical strategies students can use to maximize learning from great teachers. First, active listening is essential. Don't just hear the teacher's words, engage with the ideas. Take notes not only of facts, but also of methods, examples, and explanations. For instance, if a teacher explains a grammar structure using storytelling, note both the rule and the example. Later, try to create your own sentences in English. This helps advanced learners internalize complex structures and think naturally in English. Second, ask questions. Good teachers welcome curiosity. If you don't understand something, clarify it. Even better, ask questions that go beyond the basics. For example, instead of asking, "What does this word mean?" you could ask, "Can you give an example of how this word might be used in a professional setting?" This shows initiative and encourages the teacher to provide deeper, more meaningful explanations. Third, observe teaching techniques. Pay attention to how the teacher introduces topics, transitions between ideas, and engages students. Do they use daily life examples? Do they connect new information to what you already know? Do they encourage collaboration? Observing these strategies helps advanced learners not only improve understanding, but also adopt techniques for their own learning or future teaching. Learning from mistakes is also important. Advanced learning is full of challenges, and a key quality of a good teacher is how they handle errors. Imagine a student giving a presentation in English and making several mistakes. A supportive teacher will first highlight the strengths, then give clear, constructive guidance for improvement. This approach helps students see mistakes as opportunities to learn, rather than failures. As a student, notice how your teacher addresses errors. This can teach you how to handle challenges in your own learning. Another important factor is reflection. Good teachers encourage students to think critically about their own performance. After a writing assignment, for example, a teacher might ask students to review their work, identify strengths and weaknesses, and set goals for the next assignment. This reflective process reinforces learning and builds independence, which is crucial for advanced learners aiming to refine language and critical thinking skills. Let's look at some daily life examples. Imagine a student struggling to understand phrasal verbs, a common challenge for advanced English learners. A skilled teacher might explain the same verb in multiple contexts, provide real-life examples, and create small exercises for practice. Then, the teacher encourages students to make their own sentences and share them in class. This multi-step approach shows empathy, patience, adaptability, and interactive teaching. When students feel supported, motivated, and valued, they are more likely to engage deeply, participate actively, and retain knowledge effectively. Feeling seen and appreciated encourages learners to take risks, ask questions, and challenge themselves. Another strong example is group discussions in advanced English classrooms. A teacher might divide students into small teams to debate ethical dilemmas, current events, or cultural differences. Each student has a chance to speak, and the teacher provides guidance, subtly corrects mistakes, and encourages nuanced arguments. These lessons help students develop fluency, critical thinking, and confidence. They also demonstrate several key qualities of a good teacher: engagement, communication skills, empathy, and the ability to motivate learners. Now, let's look at teacher-student relationships. A strong, respectful relationship creates a safe learning environment. When students feel their ideas are valued, they are more likely to participate actively and take risks in learning. For example, in a creative writing class, a student may feel nervous about sharing a short story. A teacher who shows genuine interest, asks thoughtful questions, and provides encouraging feedback can make a huge difference. This kind of environment promotes skill development, emotional growth, resilience, and confidence, all of which are essential for advanced learners. Mentorship beyond academics is also important. Great teachers often guide students in developing habits, strategies, and life skills, not just preparing for exams. For example, a language teacher might give advice on managing study schedules, selecting reading materials, or practicing speaking outside the classroom. These small, practical tips can have a lasting impact on student growth. Creativity and innovation are crucial in teaching as well. A creative teacher makes abstract concepts tangible. For example, when teaching idiomatic expressions, a teacher might use role plays, storytelling exercises, or interactive games. Instead of memorizing definitions, students experience idioms in context. This helps advanced learners understand nuance, tone, and cultural context, skills essential at C1, C2 levels. Lifelong learning and role modeling are also key. The best teachers model the behaviors they want students to adopt. They read, explore new ideas, and continuously improve their teaching methods. By observing this, students learn that learning never ends, that curiosity is valuable, and that effort and perseverance lead to mastery. For advanced learners, seeing a teacher actively engage in learning reinforces the idea that mastery of English, or any skill, requires ongoing practice, reflection, and openness to new knowledge. Now, let's move to practical strategies students can use to learn from great teachers and internalize their qualities. Understanding what makes a teacher excellent is one thing, but applying those lessons can take your learning to a completely new level. First, observation and analysis. Pay attention to how teachers structure their lessons. Notice how they transition between topics, introduce examples, and maintain engagement. For example, a teacher explaining a complex economics topic might start with a real-world case study, introduce the theory, and then facilitate a discussion connecting ideas. Observing this flow teaches not just the subject, but also how to organize information clearly, a skill you can use in presentations, essays, or professional contexts. Second, emulate communication techniques. Advanced learners can improve their English by noticing how teachers phrase sentences, emphasize key ideas, and modulate tone. For example, a teacher might say, "It's essential to understand this principle because it affects everything we'll discuss later." By emphasizing key words and connecting concepts, teachers make information memorable. As a learner, you can mimic these patterns in speaking and writing to improve clarity, coherence, and persuasion. Third, active participation. Simply listening isn't enough. Engage with the material by asking questions, contributing to discussions, and respectfully challenging ideas. For example, in a literature class, if a teacher presents one interpretation of a poem, an advanced learner might offer an alternative interpretation or relate it to cultural or historical context. This kind of engagement deepens understanding and helps solidify advanced vocabulary and structures. Fourth, reflective learning. After each lesson, take time to review what you learned. Identify what was clear, what was challenging, and how you can improve. For instance, after a lesson on advanced idioms, you might reflect, "I understood most idioms, but I struggled to use them in sentences spontaneously. Tomorrow, I will write 5 original sentences using each idiom." Reflection allows advanced learners to track progress, recognize patterns, and plan targeted improvements, which is essential for mastery at high levels. Let's look at some daily life and classroom examples that show how great teachers make a difference. Imagine an advanced English class discussing global environmental issues. The teacher presents recent research, encourages debate, and guides students in developing arguments. A student notices that the teacher uses strategies like asking probing questions and connecting abstract ideas to current events. By observing this, the student learns not only about environmental topics, but also how to structure arguments logically, use persuasive language, and respond effectively in discussions. This is learning beyond content, it's learning method. Another strategy is taking initiative outside the classroom. Great teachers often provide resources, suggestions, or exercises for independent learning. Advanced learners benefit by following these recommendations. For example, a teacher might suggest watching English documentaries, reading editorials, or joining online discussion forums. By engaging with these materials, students reinforce classroom learning while expanding vocabulary, comprehension, and cultural understanding in authentic contexts. Learning from feedback is another cornerstone of advanced learning. Good teachers provide feedback constructively. When you receive feedback, focus not on criticism, but on actionable advice. For example, if a teacher comments, "Your essay is strong, but your arguments need more evidence," break it down. Identify which points need support, research, or brainstorm additional examples, and revise carefully. Advanced learners who internalize feedback develop a mindset of continuous improvement rather than perfectionism, essential for mastering complex skills. Mentorship and long-term guidance are also valuable. Some of the most important lessons from teachers happen outside formal lessons. For instance, a teacher noticing a student's interest in international relations might suggest extra reading, invite them to discussion groups, or provide guidance for internships. Advanced learners benefit because mentorship connects classroom knowledge to real-life applications, encourages exploration, and builds confidence. Observing these interactions teaches professional skills, research strategies, and critical thinking, extending learning beyond language alone. Curiosity and creativity are crucial qualities teachers foster. A good teacher doesn't just give answers, they provoke questions. Imagine a history teacher discussing the Industrial Revolution. Instead of only stating facts, they ask, "How did rapid technological changes affect workers' daily lives? What lessons can we apply today?" By encouraging critical thinking, connections, and personal opinions, teachers develop analytical skills and creativity. Advanced learners gain both language proficiency and intellectual flexibility. Collaboration and peer learning are also important. Teachers often organize group projects, debates, or peer reviews. For example, in a business English course, students might work in teams to develop a marketing plan. The teacher observes, provides guidance, and encourages reflection. Students practice advanced vocabulary, presentation skills, teamwork, negotiation, and problem-solving. Watching how a teacher facilitates collaboration helps learners replicate these strategies in study groups or professional settings. Modern classrooms often integrate technology. A science teacher might use interactive simulations to demonstrate chemical reactions. A language teacher could assign listening tasks using podcasts, videos, or speech recognition software to practice pronunciation. A literature teacher might use online forums for debates on novels. In all cases, teachers combine technology with personal guidance, creating dynamic, engaging learning environments. Advanced learners benefit because multimodal learning strengthens listening, comprehension, writing, and speaking simultaneously. Emotional intelligence is another key factor. Advanced learners face challenging topics like abstract philosophical ideas or technical jargon. A teacher who notices frustration, hesitation, or confusion and responds with patience, encouragement, and clear explanations can transform difficulty into understanding. For example, in speaking exercises, a teacher might provide sentence scaffolding, vocabulary prompts, or supportive partner pairings. Emotional intelligence ensures that learning is not just cognitive, but also motivational and psychologically safe. Finally, let's consider creativity in advanced language classes. Creative teachers introduce playful exercises, storytelling, role-playing, or debates to make lessons memorable. For example, teaching phrasal verbs might involve a storytelling game where students create a narrative using a set of verbs. This encourages active language use, reinforces memory, and builds confidence in both speaking and writing. Advanced learners who pay attention to the strategies that good teachers use can adapt these methods for self-study or peer practice, making learning more active, effective, and enjoyable. Observing a teacher is not just about learning the subject, they also demonstrate how to learn, and this is something students can emulate to improve their own skills. One important area is continuous learning, both for teachers and students. The best teachers never stop learning themselves. They model curiosity, adaptability, and a growth mindset. They try new teaching methods, use technology in creative ways, and adjust their lessons based on student feedback. When students see this in action, they understand the value of lifelong learning. At advanced levels, this is essential. Mastering English, or any complex skill, requires regular practice, critical thinking, and continuous refinement. Students who adopt this mindset and try to learn like their teachers are better prepared for success in academics, professional life, and personal growth. Now, let's explore how learners can apply the qualities of good teachers to their own learning routines. Advanced students benefit from understanding not just what teachers do, but how they do it, and then applying those strategies to become more independent, confident, and effective learners. Turning observation into action is powerful because it transforms passive learning into active skill development. 1. Structured planning. Good teachers are always organized. They plan lessons carefully, with clear objectives, steps, and outcomes. Students can do the same by creating structured study plans. For example, if you are learning advanced English grammar, you can divide your topics into weekly goals. One week could focus on mastering complex sentence structures, the next on idiomatic expressions, and another on formal writing techniques. Within each week, plan specific activities: reading articles, writing summaries, practicing speaking, and reviewing what you learned. This method mirrors a teacher's approach and helps you stay focused, track progress, and feel in control of your learning. 2. Breaking down complex concepts. Teachers excel at making difficult ideas easy to understand. You can do the same by breaking challenging material into smaller, manageable parts. For example, if you are reading a dense academic article, don't try to understand everything at once. Focus on one paragraph at a time, highlight key ideas, and summarize them in your own words. Identify any vocabulary or grammar structures you don't understand, and look them up. This step-by-step approach makes learning less overwhelming and ensures that you fully understand the material, just like a teacher would do in class. 3. Active note-taking and reflection. Good teachers show how to organize information clearly and help students remember ideas. You can copy this strategy by keeping a learning journal. While listening to lessons, reading articles, or watching videos, take notes not only on facts, but also on examples, methods, and explanations used by teachers. For instance, if a teacher uses a metaphor to explain a complex economic principle, write down the metaphor and your interpretation. Later, review your notes, reflect on what you learned, and try explaining the concept aloud or to someone else. This method reinforces memory, develops understanding, and strengthens advanced communication skills. 4. Active participation. Learning works best when students are actively engaged. Asking questions, contributing ideas, and thinking critically helps you internalize knowledge more effectively. You can practice this even when studying independently. For example, after reading a news article in English, ask yourself, what is the author's main argument? Do I agree or disagree? How would I explain this idea to someone else? Answering these questions aloud or in writing mirrors classroom discussions and builds analytical thinking, speaking fluency, and confidence. 5. Emulating feedback techniques. Good teachers don't just correct mistakes, they explain why something is wrong, suggest alternatives, and guide improvement. You can do the same with your own work. For instance, after writing an essay, review it critically. Where are the strengths? Which parts are unclear? Could I use more precise vocabulary or complex sentences? Then revise your work based on your observations. This self-feedback method helps you improve continuously, just like a teacher would guide you, and it develops self-awareness and advanced learning skills. 6. Peer collaboration and mentorship. Teachers often organize group activities to enhance learning. You can replicate this by forming study groups or language exchanges. Working with peers allows you to practice speaking, exchange ideas, and provide feedback. For example, two students can review each other's essays, practice advanced vocabulary in conversation, or debate a topic together. This method strengthens language skills, critical thinking, and collaboration, preparing you for real-life communication. 7. Curiosity and lifelong learning. Finally, advanced learners should remember that learning never stops. Observe teachers who experiment with new methods, embrace technology, and seek feedback. They show that curiosity, persistence, and adaptability are key to growth. By imitating these qualities, students learn to explore independently, try new strategies, and develop mastery over time. In summary, advanced learners can take inspiration from teachers by planning their study methodically, breaking complex material into steps, taking notes and reflecting on learning, participating actively, practicing self-feedback, collaborating with peers, embracing curiosity and lifelong learning. By applying these strategies, students transform passive learning into active skill development, improve English proficiency, and gain confidence, independence, and mastery. For example, you can pair up with another learner to practice articles, debates, or give each other feedback on writing. Watch how teachers encourage collaboration. They ask students to share ideas, listen actively, and give constructive criticism. Try to copy these behaviors when working with peers. By doing this, you not only improve language skills, but also develop social intelligence, leadership, and problem-solving abilities, skills that are useful beyond the classroom. Now, let's talk about creativity in learning. Advanced teachers often use storytelling, role-play, or interactive exercises to make lessons interesting and memorable. Learners can apply the same techniques independently. For example, you can practice new vocabulary by creating short stories. Record yourself explaining complex topics in English. Do role-play exercises based on real-life situations. These activities engage multiple senses, help memory, and improve fluency in speaking and writing. Creativity also gives learners the chance to experiment with language naturally, which is essential for mastery at C1, C2 levels. Time management is another skill you can learn from effective teachers. Good teachers balance explanation, practice, and review. Advanced learners should do the same during self-study. For example, during a study session, you can divide your time for reading and understanding material, taking notes and reflecting, doing practice exercises, reviewing feedback. Using timers or schedules ensures that every activity gets enough attention. Structured time management increases efficiency, covers all important areas, and mirrors the disciplined approach of professional educators. Let's explore some real-life scenarios where these strategies apply. Imagine preparing for an advanced English exam. A teacher might guide students step by step through listening, reading, writing, and speaking tasks, giving feedback at each stage. You can replicate this by completing practice tests methodically, analyzing results, identifying weak points, revising and improving gradually. This method mirrors classroom learning and ensures focused, active practice, helping you build mastery over time. Another example is language immersion. Teachers often encourage students to use English outside the classroom. You can do the same by listening to podcasts, reading news articles, writing reflections, speaking with peers. For example, after watching an English documentary, you could summarize the main points in writing or discuss them aloud. This constant exposure improves vocabulary, comprehension, and advanced grammar usage. Immersing yourself in English like this accelerates learning, just as good teachers create immersive experiences in class. Reflective journaling is another powerful technique. Write about what you learned, what was challenging, and how you can improve. For example, after practicing advanced listening skills, note words or phrases you found difficult, strategies that helped, areas to focus on next. This mirrors how teachers encourage reflection in class and helps develop self-awareness, metacognitive skills, and long-term retention. Next, consider emotional and motivational strategies inspired by good teachers. Teachers often promote a growth mindset, showing that mistakes are part of learning. As a learner, you should adopt the same attitude. When facing difficult grammar, complex listening passages, or challenging speaking tasks, remind yourself, errors are learning opportunities. Track progress, celebrate small successes, and maintain persistence. This approach builds resilience and confidence, just as a supportive teacher does in class. Another strategy is adaptive learning. Good teachers notice the individual needs of students and adjust lessons accordingly. You can do the same by identifying your strengths and weaknesses. For example, if you are strong in reading comprehension but weaker in speaking, dedicate more time to listening and speaking exercises while keeping a balance with other skills. This self-awareness and adaptability reflect professional teaching strategies and increase learning efficiency. Finally, think about the long-term benefits of learning from good teachers. Observing, emulating, and reflecting on teaching methods not only improves language skills, but also strengthens critical thinking, creativity, problem-solving, independent learning. Advanced learners who internalize these strategies become not only proficient in English, but also able to analyze complex ideas, communicate effectively, and apply knowledge in real-life situations. Let's now explore detailed stories of exceptional teaching moments, showing how learners can draw lessons from them. Stories help advanced learners understand abstract ideas in context, reinforce vocabulary, and demonstrate practical application of strategies. Consider the story of a university professor teaching advanced English literature. She noticed that her students had trouble interpreting symbolism in classic novels. Instead of giving direct explanations, she created a creative exercise. Each student chose a chapter and drew a mind map, connecting characters, themes, and symbolic elements. This exercise made students think critically, connect ideas, and visualize relationships in the text. It also encouraged active participation, creativity, and collaboration, while giving students ownership of their learning. Through this example, we see how good teachers use creativity, reflection, and engagement to make learning both meaningful and enjoyable. Then the students presented their interpretations to the class. The professor guided discussions, asked thoughtful questions, and highlighted subtle details and nuances in the symbolism. Over time, students developed strong analytical skills and could express complex ideas fluently in English. From this story, learners can see the value of interactive engagement, creativity, and guided support, all essential qualities of effective teaching. Another story comes from a science teacher in an advanced ESL classroom. The topic was climate change, a complex subject with technical terminology and abstract ideas. Instead of overwhelming students with data, the teacher organized a simulated climate summit. Students took roles as scientists, policymakers, or journalists and prepared arguments based on research. The teacher facilitated debates, corrected misunderstandings subtly, and encouraged the use of precise vocabulary. This approach demonstrates experiential learning, role-playing, and contextualized practice, strategies that advanced learners can replicate in their own studies. For example, Students can create debates or discussions on professional or personal topics to practice both language skills and critical thinking. Let's also consider a language immersion example. An English teacher organized weekly immersion days where students could only speak English. The teacher prepared real-life scenarios like ordering food, asking for directions, giving presentations, or having casual conversations. At first, students felt nervous, but the teacher's patient guidance, positive reinforcement, and structured exercises created a safe environment. Over months, students gained fluency, confidence, and practical vocabulary. Advanced learners can replicate this at home by creating simulated immersion environments, practicing speaking, listening, and writing in realistic contexts daily. Now, let's talk about mentorship-style learning. Great teachers often guide students beyond formal lessons. For example, a mentor helped a student struggling with professional communication in English. The mentor observed presentations, suggested targeted exercises, and provided ongoing feedback. Gradually, the student's confidence and fluency improved significantly. Advanced learners can replicate this by seeking peer or online mentorship, studying model performances, and practicing structured feedback loops. This mirrors professional teaching strategies and strengthens both language and cognitive skills. Storytelling as a teaching tool is also worth noting. Outstanding teachers use stories to make abstract concepts tangible and memorable. For instance, a history teacher explaining industrialization might recount the life of a fictional worker in 19th century London. Students visualize the environment, empathize with the workers' challenges, and analyze the social and economic context. Advanced learners benefit because stories engage memory, comprehension, and critical thinking simultaneously. Learners can also use storytelling themselves to practice complex vocabulary, advanced grammar, and persuasive communication. Next, let's look at practical techniques to internalize teacher-inspired strategies. Advanced learners can create a structured observation journal. Whenever you attend a lecture, watch a podcast, or participate in an online lesson, note the following. Lesson structure. How does the teacher organize information? Engagement methods. How are students kept interested? Explanation techniques. How are complex ideas clarified? Feedback approaches. How is guidance delivered constructively? Motivational strategies. How are students encouraged? Adaptability and problem solving. How does the teacher handle challenges? By reflecting on these points, learners can internalize effective strategies and apply them in self-study or peer teaching. For example, replicate engagement techniques by creating discussion prompts for yourself or practicing explanations aloud as if teaching someone else. Collaborative learning is another strategy inspired by teachers. In advanced classrooms, students often work in pairs or groups, guided by the teacher. Learners can replicate this by forming study groups, joining online forums, or participating in language exchanges. For instance, after reading a complex article on technology trends, students could discuss key points in a small group, ask questions, and give feedback. This mirrors classroom dynamics, reinforces comprehension, and develops advanced speaking and reasoning skills. Technology integration is also essential. Many advanced educators use apps, videos, podcasts, and interactive simulations. Learners can do the same by using speech recognition software, analyzing podcasts for idioms and complex structures, or participating in virtual discussion boards. Combining self-directed learning with technology replicates the interactive and engaging environment of high-quality classrooms. Reflection and self-assessment are key techniques. After a listening exercise, note which parts were difficult, which strategies helped, and what could be done differently next time. After writing an essay, evaluate clarity, vocabulary, and grammar over time. This practice fosters independence, critical thinking, and continuous improvement. Advanced learners who adopt this habit often progress faster than those relying only on instruction. Finally, let's discuss emotional intelligence and motivation. Exceptional teachers recognize the emotional and psychological aspects of learning. They know when students are overwhelmed, frustrated, or lacking confidence, and they respond with patience and encouragement. Advanced learners can emulate this by managing their emotions, staying motivated, and viewing challenges as opportunities for growth. Advanced learners can adopt a similar mindset to great teachers. When facing challenges, maintain a growth-oriented perspective, celebrate small achievements, and develop strategies to overcome obstacles. This approach strengthens resilience, confidence, and long-term mastery of English. Creativity in learning is another important takeaway. Exceptional teachers often use innovative exercises to make lessons memorable. For example, a vocabulary lesson might involve creating a mini-story, role-playing a scenario, or producing a short video using new words. Advanced learners can replicate these exercises independently or with peers. This strengthens retention, fluency, and flexibility, and encourages learners to experiment, make mistakes safely, and discover unique ways to express themselves. Next, consider continuous learning and adaptability, key qualities of exceptional teachers. Great teachers continually refine their methods, experiment with new ideas, and incorporate feedback. Advanced learners should mirror this by staying curious, experimenting with study techniques, and adapting strategies to their evolving needs. For instance, if one listening strategy isn't effective, try another, like shadowing audio, summarizing podcasts, or creating discussion questions. Over time, this iterative approach leads to mastery and deep understanding. Now, let's explore daily routines inspired by effective teachers. Advanced learners benefit from structured habits that combine consistency, creativity, and reflection. Observing what makes teachers effective can help you design your own study schedule. Morning routines are particularly powerful. Many teachers start the day by reviewing materials or reading new resources. Learners can emulate this by dedicating the first 30 to 60 minutes of the day to focused English practice. For example, listen to a podcast segment, write a summary, and note new vocabulary or complex structures. This develops listening comprehension and reinforces active learning skills while priming your brain for deeper thinking throughout the day. Immersive listening exercises are equally important. One advanced learner dedicated 2 hours daily to podcasts, TED Talks, news segments, and audiobooks. They pause to summarize main ideas, note advanced vocabulary, and identify idiomatic expressions, similar to how a good teacher structures listening exercises. Over months, comprehension, speed of processing, and note-taking skills improved dramatically. Advanced learners can replicate this by creating personalized listening routines that challenge understanding while reinforcing retention. Speaking routines also matter. Exceptional teachers create low-pressure opportunities for students to speak. Learners can replicate this by setting daily speaking habits. For example, explain a news article aloud, debate a topic with a partner, or record yourself summarizing a complex concept. Then reflect on vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, just like a teacher would provide feedback. Over time, this builds fluency, accuracy, and confidence. Structured writing routines are another essential practice. Teachers guide students through brainstorming, drafting, revising, and editing. Learners can do the same independently. For instance, after reading an article on environmental policy, summarize key points, analyze the author's reasoning, and write a response using advanced grammar and vocabulary. Revise critically for coherence and clarity. Repeating this process develops high-level writing skills similar to classroom instruction, but in a self-directed way. Reflection and feedback routines are also teacher-inspired. Teachers encourage reviewing mistakes, identifying patterns, and setting goals. Advanced learners can keep a weekly reflection journal. Review completed exercises, listening notes, or speaking recordings. Ask yourself, which skills improved? Where did I struggle? Which strategies worked best? What will I focus on next week? This mirrors reflective habits modeled by excellent teachers and develops metacognition, independence, and long-term progress. Immersive reading routines are another strategy. Exceptional teachers select challenging, meaningful materials. Learners can read editorials, research articles, literature, or professional reports, then summarize, highlight vocabulary, and critically evaluate arguments. For example, after reading about global economics, explain it aloud to a peer or record a spoken summary. This mirrors classroom discussion and strengthens comprehension, vocabulary, and critical thinking simultaneously. Finally, consider role-play and simulation exercises. The most effective teachers use interactive exercises to make abstract ideas concrete. Advanced learners can replicate this by creating their own simulations, conduct a mock business meeting, role-play a debate on a current issue, simulate a customer service scenario, or practice negotiation. These exercises reinforce practical language skills, critical thinking, and real-world application. During these exercises, focus on applying advanced vocabulary, formal expressions, and nuanced arguments. After each session, reflect critically. Did I express my ideas clearly? Was my vocabulary precise? Could I improve my fluency or persuasiveness? These self-guided exercises mirror high-level classroom strategies and help reinforce practical English skills. Integrating feedback loops is another key strategy. Exceptional teachers provide immediate or delayed feedback to guide improvement. Advanced learners can replicate this by recording speaking exercises or essays, reviewing them after a day or two, noting errors, identifying patterns, and implementing corrections in the next session. This approach strengthens memory, accuracy, and awareness of recurring mistakes. Cultural and contextual learning is also important. Skilled teachers connect language to culture, context, and real-life application. Advanced learners can do the same by exploring authentic English media, interviews, documentaries, TV shows, podcasts, or debates. For example, listening to a debate on climate policy exposes learners to advanced structures, persuasive language, and culturally specific expressions. Reflect on tone, register, and stylistic choices, and try incorporating these elements into your own writing or speaking. This mirrors the immersive, contextualized strategies of expert teachers. Peer collaboration routines are another effective technique. Teachers structure group work to reinforce comprehension and speaking skills. Learners can replicate this by forming small study groups, discussion clubs, or online partnerships. For example, after reading a challenging article, discuss key ideas, ask questions, and critique each other's interpretations using complex vocabulary and nuanced expressions. This collaborative routine mirrors effective classroom environments and accelerates fluency and comprehension. Error correction and adaptive strategies are critical. Exceptional teachers notice student weaknesses and adjust instruction accordingly. Advanced learners can adopt the same mindset. After a week of listening or speaking practice, identify recurring difficulties, unclear comprehension of fast speech, misinterpretation of idioms, or grammatical errors. Then adapt your practice. Slow down audio, focus on idiomatic expressions, or complete targeted grammar exercises. This self-adaptive approach mirrors professional teaching techniques and improves efficiency and mastery. Creativity and engagement are also essential. Teachers often use games, simulations, or storytelling to make lessons memorable. Advanced learners can do the same by gamifying study, turning vocabulary review into quizzes, creating stories or dialogues with new structures, or recording audio, video summaries to reinforce comprehension and speaking skills. Creativity makes learning enjoyable, memorable, and practical. It also encourages experimentation, allowing learners to take risks with language safely, just like a skilled teacher does in class. Long-term consistency and mindset are crucial. Exceptional teachers model dedication, persistence, and growth-oriented thinking. Advanced learners should mirror this mindset. Regular practice, reflection, and iterative improvement over months and years builds fluency, confidence, and mastery. Observing and emulating teacher strategies in daily practice allows learners to create a high-quality learning environment anywhere in the world. Now, let's focus on immersive listening exercises inspired by classroom strategies. Skilled teachers often use authentic materials to expose students to natural language, complex structures, and cultural nuances. Learners can replicate this at home using podcasts, interviews, news segments, or TED Talks. Here's a structured approach. Pre-listening preparation. Before listening, skim the title, description, or transcript if available. Anticipate content and note unfamiliar vocabulary. For example, a podcast about climate policy might include key terms like carbon offset, renewable energy, or emissions trading. This mirrors how teachers prime students for comprehension. Active listening. While listening, focus on main ideas, tone, and key details. Pause to summarize in your own words. For example, after a complex sentence about international agreements, repeat it aloud, paraphrase it, or write a short summary. Advanced teachers often pause to ask questions or elicit responses. Learners can self-question in the same way. Post-listening reflection. After finishing, review vocabulary, note expressions, and reflect on structure and style. Ask yourself, did I understand the argument? Could I explain it to someone else? How would I use this vocabulary or structure in my own speaking or writing? This mirrors classroom post-listening discussion and reinforces comprehension and retention. By combining preparation, active engagement, and reflection, learners replicate classroom strategies independently. This approach develops advanced listening skills, vocabulary, and cultural awareness while strengthening critical thinking and communication. Speaker's main point. The main point is that advanced learners can replicate effective teaching strategies on their own to improve English skills. By observing how teachers teach, learners can adopt structured routines for listening, speaking, vocabulary, grammar, and stylistic awareness. The focus is on active engagement, reflection, creativity, and context-based practice to achieve mastery at advanced levels. Examples used. Post-listening reflection. Summarize content after listening. Highlight new vocabulary. Analyze discourse markers, connectors, and sentence structures, e.g., it's worth noting on the contrary, as a result. Mirrors classroom review. Speaking practice. Debates. Prepare arguments and counterarguments, record yourself, review errors. Storytelling exercises. Turn news articles, scientific discoveries, or personal experiences into stories. Role-playing. Simulate professional or daily life situations, negotiation, presentations, interviews. Vocabulary acquisition. Learn new words in context. Write example sentences. Use spaced repetition systems, SRS. Example. The project aims to bridge the gap between theory and practice in engineering education. Advanced grammar and stylistic practice. Expand simple sentences with relative clauses, participial phrases, or conditionals. Adjust formal versus informal register. Use discourse markers for cohesion, e.g., moreover, on the other hand, despite this, consequently. Listening skills. Pay attention to intonation to understand emphasis or urgency. Listen for implied ideas and infer meaning, e.g., some countries have invested heavily in renewable energy, implies progress. Identify figurative language, metaphors, idioms, humor, or rhetorical devices. Example metaphor. The economy is a ticking time bomb. Story-based immersion exercises. Create detailed narratives about real or fictional events to practice contextual understanding. Post-listening reflection steps for learners. Summarize main ideas in your own words. Highlight new vocabulary and idiomatic expressions. Analyze stylistic choices, discourse markers, and sentence structures. Identify implied meanings and subtleties in tone. Key takeaways for advanced learners. Actively replicate teaching strategies at home or with peers. Combine listening, speaking, vocabulary, grammar, and storytelling into daily practice. Reflect, adapt, and create self-directed exercises to achieve mastery. Focus on context, nuance, and creativity, not just memorization. Teacher-inspired self-study guide for advanced English learners. 1. Storytelling exercises. Storytelling is one of the most effective strategies used by excellent teachers. It helps learners practice vocabulary, sentence structures, logical sequencing, and expressive skills. How to practice. Choose a topic such as a technological innovation, scientific discovery, or personal experience. Construct a story including the problem or challenge, the innovation or solution, obstacles faced, implications or outcomes for society. Speak or write your story using advanced vocabulary, varied sentence structures, and logical sequencing. Reflect afterward. Did I clearly explain cause and effect? Did I use precise vocabulary? Could I improve cohesion and flow? This mirrors classroom storytelling exercises and strengthens both comprehension and expressive abilities. 2. Interactive self-assessment. Good teachers continuously assess student understanding. You can replicate this independently. Techniques. Quizzes. After reading an article or listening to a podcast, create your own questions. Example. What were the main ideas? What challenges were mentioned? How would I explain this to a colleague? Peer review. Collaborate with another learner. Exchange essays, recordings, or summaries and give detailed feedback on vocabulary, grammar, and argumentation. Progress tracking. Track weekly performance in listening, speaking, writing, and vocabulary. Set measurable goals and reflect on improvement. 3. Practical application in daily life. Outstanding teachers emphasize applying knowledge beyond the classroom. Learners can do the same. Professional contexts. Prepare presentations, write reports, or summarize business articles to present to colleagues. Focus on fluency, clarity, and formal language. Casual contexts. Participate in conversation clubs, online forums, or social events. Practice debating, expressing opinions, or narrating personal experiences. Media integration. Listen to podcasts, watch documentaries, or read advanced articles. Summarize content aloud or write reflections. Note new vocabulary, expressions, and stylistic techniques. 4. Emotional engagement and motivation. Motivation is a key driver for advanced learning. Adopt teacher-inspired strategies to stay engaged. Set specific, measurable, and challenging goals. Summarize 2 podcasts daily. Write a 300-word argumentative essay 3 times per week. Celebrate progress with small rewards, peer recognition, or reflection. Maintain a growth mindset. View mistakes as learning opportunities, not failures. Cultivate curiosity and resilience through consistent practice and experimentation. 5. Structured daily routine inspired by teachers. Here's an example of a day for advanced learners. Morning, 30 to 60 minutes. Listen to a podcast or news segment. Take notes of key ideas, new vocabulary, and advanced structures. Summarize aloud or write a brief reflection. Midday, 30 to 45 minutes. Speaking practice. Debate a topic, role-play a scenario, or narrate a story. Record yourself and review for accuracy, fluency, and vocabulary. Afternoon, 45 to 60 minutes. Reading comprehension. Choose an article or research paper. Highlight key arguments, idioms, and discourse markers. Practice explaining the content aloud or in writing. Evening, 30 to 45 minutes. Writing exercises. Compose essays, reports, or summaries. Apply advanced grammar and stylistic techniques. Reflect on errors and revise critically. Daily reflection. What did I learn today? Which areas need improvement? How can I apply teacher-inspired techniques tomorrow? By following these routines, advanced learners can replicate classroom strategies at home, strengthen fluency, comprehension, and critical thinking, and develop long-term mastery of English.